This is our Thor guide for Marvel Rivals. Thor is a proper brawler in this game and he could take out almost any hero if you know how to use him well. Now he's only grown in popularity recently and I do think he's a super powerful hero. So let's go over some of the basics and we'll also go over advanced tips as well. So like I said, covering the basics first, we're covering Thor's melee attack, which deals 45 damage. He basically deals a melee attack with a 4-meter range, and as you can see, you can hit enemies at a reasonable distance here, but you do pretty much need to be point blank range. But as you can see, he is whacking down a decent amount of health. Thor's next ability is his hammer throw, which he throws his hammer and then it returns back. On the way there, it deals 70 damage, and then on the way back, it deals 30 damage. So make sure you're trying to get good line of sight of the enemy because you can deal 100 total damage with this attack. Now the range on it's pretty decent as well. 24 meters is this range. So as you can see here, within that 24-meter range, you can actually still hit the enemy target. So this is your only ranged attack with Thor. So as you probably noticed, all of Thor's abilities use these hammers that are on the screen in front of you. And every time you use the ability, the hammers decrease. Now, all of his abilities work from this, so obviously you want to have as maximum hammers as possible. So one way to do this is by one of his abilities, which basically recharges one hammer immediately. So this is a bubble that he grants where he basically gets one of his hammers back, and it gives you that back without using any hammers, of course. Now, it also states on the website that the cast deals 40 damage when enemies cross the boundaries. So if you bubble an enemy inside, they only take damage once they decide to leave the bubble. So that is the only time they take damage. So if they stay inside it, they will not die or take damage. Thor's next ability is the awakened state. Now in this state, he's able to deal 70 damage per projectile. And not only that, he's firing way quicker as well. So now on the website, it says a 3-meter range, but that's not for the attacks themselves. That is for the spell field damage this also deals. So that is 15 damage per second if they're standing right next to you. So as you can see here, this tick damage that the enemy bot is taking just by not attacking them whatsoever. So Thor's next ability is Storm Surge, where you can have a full charge and dash 20 meters. Or if you have no charge, you can dash 10 meters. So that is how Storm Surge works. Now, it also is slightly different when it comes to its damage values as well. So full charge, it's going to deal 60 damage. And on no charge, you're going to deal 40 damage. So it's less damage on no charge. Now, also, you can carry enemies with this. And this is very important, which we'll get onto in the more advanced guide. But when you're carrying enemies at full charge, you can carry them up to 13 meters. And if you have no charge, you carry them basically 6 meters. So there's a difference when you have full charge and no charge, and almost all of the time you want to have full charge on this. Thor's final ability is his ultimate, which basically jumps up into the air and then smashes the ground, which has a radius of 8 meters. Now within this radius, you're dealing damage of 40, as you can see, and then when you slam the ground, you deal 220 damage, which is probably the most damage out of any ultimate in this entire game. Let's get on into the more advanced stuff with Thor now, and he's pretty simple to use, but he does have some relatively advanced combos. Now, every single one of your combos, you kind of want to initiate with the dash. The dash is something you're going to use constantly, so you need to make sure you have the dash there. So you want to charge up your dash, then strike, then hammer throw, then strike again, and that is dealing way more damage. Another combo you could do with Thor, which is very easy to do, is if you use his full charge dash, like I said, this is to initiate most of your fights, use a strike, then pop the runes ability, or whatever this is called. Then once you finish dealing damage with that, then what you want to do is you want to pop the bubble, and then you can dash straight out after that. So that is how you want to use that one, and save the bubble so you can dash and escape. Now, what you've probably also noticed is that pretty much every single one of Thor's abilities actually grants some shields as well, and they do stack. So if you do this, hit an enemy, then you also use the hammer throw, hit an enemy, then you also use the awakening rune if you did get it back. Then basically all these shields stack up on top of Thor, so it keeps him alive a lot longer. So even though he does have slightly lower health than the other vanguards in this game, his shields basically allow him to last and survive so much longer. So we've got two more tips when it comes to Thor. So when it comes to his dash, it works horizontally, of course. As you can see here, it works horizontal, but actually also works vertically as well. So if you want to jump up and get to high ground, you can also do that too. Now be careful not to overcharge this thing, but like I said, you can get to high ground with it as well. So you don't need to use it just to go across the way. You can use it to get some height as well on your enemies. And this works so perfectly with his ultimate as well. So if you use this jump, dash up into the air, and then charge his ultimate, is a bit less predictable as well, so it makes you a lot harder to hit when you're trying to use the ultimate attack. So let's talk about how you actually want to use Thor within a game. Now his whole job is to displace, very similar to Wolverine actually. So if you've used Wolverine and you like him, you'll probably like Thor as well. And if you struggle with kind of Wolverine's health aspect, then Thor actually has more health too, and more survivability just in general. So that's the first thing. You want to steal enemy players with your dash and kind of isolate them from their team. That's the first thing. The second thing, that his awakened state damage deals way more damage than a lot of the melee style heroes in this game, and just any hero in general. Now, like I said, you want to dash and carry enemies. Now, one thing you do want to make sure you do is kind of stay behind cover and wait for enemies to come to you. I think that's super important when it comes to Thor. You don't want to be kind of standing front line because you don't really have any shield abilities like Magneto and Strange, so you can't play the same way, and you're not a full dive character either, so just also keep that in mind, because you don't have loads of movement abilities like a Venom where you can literally dive in and get so far away back out the fight. You can only kind of get to a reasonable distance away, so you do want to be tactical on how you use Thor. So you want to stay behind cover for the most part, quickly dash in, steal an enemy, get a kill, dash back out, heal up, and then repeat the process again. Like I said, you can full on 1v1 with other tanks, no problem at all with Thor, because you gain that extra shield in the awakened state, and also you gain the extra shield when you throw your hammer, so you can definitely fight them quite easily. Now, one thing I do want to mention is just keep an eye on your cooldowns, because with Thor, not only do you have the hammers you need to keep an eye on, but you also have the cooldown timers as well. And the amount of times I've died just because I've realized that I've got hammers, I want to use my ability, but the cooldown timer has not refreshed. That is one of his major issues in my opinion. Now, one other thing you can do with Thor, and something that I tend to do from time to time, but it does use all three of your Thor force, is if you're coming up against a ranged hero, so this could be like a Bucky or even an Iron Man that's relatively close-ish range, is that you can use the awakened state to take out long-range heroes. Now it does obviously use all three of your Thor force, so just keep an eye on that. Because if you do use all that, then you don't have any way of escaping as well, so you need to make sure that you're in a relatively safe spot to begin with, or you've got a healer with you. If there's one main tip you take away from this whole entire video, is that you make sure you use his dash ability. It's going to get you into fights, it's going to get you out of fights, it's going to allow you to steal enemy players, it's going to allow you to pop your ultimate a lot more unpredictable, and it's going to keep you alive a lot longer by being harder to hit. But not only that, it gives you additional shields as well, so even if you're low HP and you're trying to dash to escape and you've got all three Thor force, you're probably going to survive, to be honest, because you gain additional shields as you use the ability, and you don't even need to hit enemy players whatsoever. So like I said, make sure you use his dashes. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, and thank you very much for watching.